What she desires in intimacy is often less about the position itself and more about the emotions, trust, confidence, and psychological comfort behind it. Too many people judge desire at the surface level, but attraction is deeper than appearances. When a woman feels safe enough to express what she wants, that is not something to shame. It is something to understand. Intimacy is communication without words. Preferences in the bedroom can reflect confidence, emotional openness, trust, vulnerability, excitement, and the need for deeper passion. If you misunderstand that, you may miss what she is truly trying to communicate beneath the surface. Many people assume sexual preferences are purely physical, but in reality, they often reveal something much deeper: emotional comfort, trust, and psychological openness. What a woman enjoys in intimacy is not always about sensation alone. It can reflect how safe, relaxed, and emotionally free she feels with her partner. When someone feels truly comfortable in a relationship, they become more willing to express hidden desires, experiment, and communicate openly about what they enjoy. That openness is often less about the act itself and more about the emotional environment surrounding it. A woman who feels emotionally secure is far more likely to let down her guard and explore parts of herself she may otherwise keep hidden. Why? Because intimacy is not just physical, it is vulnerability. To reveal desire is to risk judgment. To express fantasy is to trust that the other person will receive it with understanding instead of criticism. That is why sexual openness often grows in direct proportion to emotional safety. Preferences can also be tied to emotional states people seek during intimacy. Some desire tenderness because they crave reassurance. Some desire passion because they want intensity. Some enjoy surrendering control because it allows them to mentally release stress and overthinking. Others prefer feeling empowered and expressive because it affirms confidence and connection. In many cases, the preference is symbolic of an emotional experience they are seeking, not merely a physical one. This is why mature partners do not jump to shallow assumptions about what someone's preferences mean. They understand that intimacy is deeply personal and psychologically layered. Rather than judging, they ask what emotional dynamic makes that experience meaningful to the other person. At its core, desire is rarely random. It is often connected to how someone wants to feel: safe, desired, powerful, free, cherished, passionate, or deeply connected. Understanding that transforms intimacy from a physical act into emotional intelligence. Vulnerability in intimacy does not happen by accident. It happens when trust is present. Before a woman can fully express what she desires, what excites her, or what makes her feel alive in intimate moments, she must first believe she is emotionally safe with the person beside her. Because opening up about desire is not just sharing preference. It is revealing a private part of herself. And that level of honesty requires trust. Many people underestimate how emotionally vulnerable intimacy truly is. Physical closeness may look effortless from the outside, but emotional exposure beneath it can be profound. To tell someone what you want, what you fantasize about, or what makes you feel deeply connected is to risk misunderstanding, rejection, or judgment. That is why many people suppress their desires for years, not because they do not have them, but because they do not trust the person beside them enough to reveal them. When a woman feels trust, she relaxes. She no longer feels the need to perform, pretend, or hide behind restraint. She can be honest about what she enjoys, what she wants more of, and what helps her feel connected. That honesty is not casual. It is a sign that she believes her vulnerability will be respected rather than weaponized. Trust also creates emotional freedom. It allows intimacy to move beyond routine and into genuine connection. Without trust, people hold back. They overthink. They censor themselves. They fear being judged for their desires. But when trust exists, self-consciousness begins to disappear, and authenticity takes its place. This is why mature relationships prioritize emotional safety, not just attraction. Desire may ignite intimacy, but trust deepens it. The strongest connections happen when both people know they can reveal their full selves without shame. When someone becomes vulnerable with you in intimate expression, understand what is really being offered, not just desire, but trust. And trust is one of the most valuable gifts a person can give in any relationship. A desire for passion and intimacy is often misunderstood as something purely physical, but in many cases, it reflects a deeper emotional need for intensity, connection, and aliveness. Human beings are not just seeking touch, they are seeking experience. And for many women, passion becomes the language through which emotional excitement and deep connection are felt most strongly. When life becomes repetitive, predictable, or emotionally flat, the mind naturally begins to crave moments of intensity. That intensity does not always come from chaos. It can come from emotional closeness, chemistry, and deep presence with a partner. In intimacy, passion becomes a space where emotions are heightened, where attention is fully given, and where connection feels more alive than everyday interaction. A woman who desires passion is often expressing a need to feel deeply seen and emotionally engaged. It is not about excess. It is about presence. It is about wanting to feel that spark, that energy, that moment where nothing else exists except connection between two people. Passion becomes a form of emotional expression where words are no longer needed and feeling takes over. This craving for intensity can also reflect emotional contrast. When daily life feels controlled, structured, or emotionally restrained, intimacy becomes the place where freedom is experienced. Passion, in that sense, is not just physical excitement. It is emotional release. It is the space where a person can feel fully alive, fully wanted, and fully present without inhibition. Understanding this is important because it shifts perception from judgment to awareness. Desire for passion is not instability. It is human longing for depth and emotional richness. It is the need to feel something real in a world that often feels routine. When two people share passionate intimacy, it is not just about physical closeness. It is about emotional electricity. It is about two individuals meeting in a moment where intensity becomes connection and connection becomes memory. Confidence in expressing personal preferences in intimacy is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity. It shows that a woman is not operating from fear, shame, or insecurity, but from self-awareness and inner acceptance. Many people struggle silently with their desires because they are afraid of judgment or rejection. But when someone reaches a point where they can openly communicate what they like, it reflects a deeper level of personal growth. Emotional maturity is not about suppressing desire. It is about understanding it. accepting it, and being able to communicate it responsibly. A woman who can confidently express her preferences is someone who understands her own emotional and physical needs. She is not guessing, pretending, or conforming to please others. Instead, she is aware of herself and honest enough to share that awareness. This kind of confidence also strengthens relationships. When desires are communicated clearly, there is less confusion, less assumption, and more alignment between partners. It creates a space where both individuals can understand each other better and build intimacy based on honesty rather than guesswork. Silence often creates distance, but communication builds connection. True confidence in intimacy is not loud or demanding. It is calm, clear, and self-assured. It does not come from ego. It comes from self-respect. A woman who can say what she enjoys without hesitation is also showing that she values mutual satisfaction and emotional transparency. She is not afraid of being misunderstood because she trusts her voice and her right to express herself. This maturity also reflects emotional security. People who lack confidence in expressing themselves often fear rejection or judgment. But emotional maturity allows someone to accept that not every preference will be shared or understood, and that is okay. What matters is honesty, not perfection. In the end, confidence in expressing preferences is not just about intimacy. It is about self-ownership. It is about knowing who you are, what you need, and having the courage to communicate it without fear. That is emotional maturity in its most authentic form. One of the most important truths in understanding intimacy is this: personal preferences do not define a person's character, values, or morality. Human desire is complex, shaped by psychology, experience, emotional needs, and trust. Yet, many people make the mistake of attaching moral judgment to something that is deeply personal and private. A woman's preferences in intimacy are not a reflection of her worth as a person. They are not a measure of her dignity, intelligence, or emotional depth. They are simply expressions of what makes her feel comfortable, connected, or emotionally engaged in a private space. Reducing a human being to one aspect of preference is not understanding. It is oversimplification. People are shaped by different emotional experiences. Some connect intimacy with tenderness and safety. Others are drawn to passion and intensity. Some value emotional control and surrender in different ways. None of these differences make one person better or worse than another. They simply show that human psychology is diverse, not uniform. The problem arises when judgment replaces understanding. When people label or stereotype others based on personal preferences, they ignore the deeper truth. Intimacy is not a moral scoreboard. It is a private emotional exchange between two consenting adults. What matters most is respect, communication, and mutual understanding, not comparison or criticism. Emotional maturity allows a person to separate behavior from identity. Just because someone prefers something in private does not define their entire personality or moral standing. A kind, intelligent, respectful individual does not lose those qualities because of their preferences in intimacy. Likewise, assumptions built on misunderstanding only create distance and shame. True understanding comes from empathy. Instead of asking, "What does this say about them?" a more mature question is, "What does this mean for their emotional comfort and trust?" Because when judgment disappears, clarity appears, At its core, human intimacy is not about labeling people. It is about understanding them, and understanding begins where judgment ends. When a woman expresses a certain desire in intimacy, immature people rush to judgment. Mature people ask a better question. What emotion is behind that desire? Because physical preferences are rarely just physical. They often represent comfort, trust, freedom, excitement, or emotional release. What she enjoys may reflect how safe she feels to be uninhibited with you. It may reflect the level of passion she craves. It may reflect the side of herself she only reveals when she feels emotionally secure. Never reduce a woman's preference to a stereotype, because desire is personal, layered, and deeply psychological. A woman does not become vulnerable in intimacy unless she feels trust. Vulnerability in the bedroom is emotional exposure. It means she is comfortable enough to let go of fear, self-consciousness, and restraint. That kind of openness is not casual. It is earned. When someone expresses desire honestly, it often means they trust the person beside them enough to be real. And trust is one of the highest forms of attraction. Sometimes desire reflects a craving for intensity. Some people are drawn to passion, energy, spontaneity, and emotional fire in intimate moments. That does not mean anything negative about them. It simply means they connect with intensity. They want to feel wanted. They want chemistry, momentum, and emotional immersion. Passion is not dysfunction. Desire for excitement is not a flaw. It is simply part of human attraction. When a woman confidently communicates what she likes, that is emotional maturity. Many people spend their lives unable to express their needs because of shame, fear, or insecurity. Someone who can communicate desire openly is showing self-awareness and confidence. That is not something to judge. It is something to respect. Honest communication creates better connection than silent assumptions ever will. And let this be understood clearly. Preferences do not define character. What someone enjoys in private intimacy does not determine their worth, morality, intelligence, or values. Too many people attach unfair meaning to sexual preferences and create narratives that are based on insecurity, not truth. A mature partner understands that intimacy is about mutual comfort, not projection or judgment. The strongest relationships are not built on assumptions. They are built on communication, respect, curiosity, and understanding. If someone tells you what they like, the real message is this: they trust you enough to be honest. And if you are wise, you will not respond with judgment. You will respond with understanding. Because real intimacy begins where shame ends, and deep connection grows where two people feel safe enough to be fully themselves.